Hey punks! Welcome back to the University of Radlands. We have another Cult of Chrome preview that Daniel posted today, number 5. I'm going to link his Board Game Geek posting in the description. I'd really recommend reading them, whether you watch this first or read it, or vice versa. He throws in a lot of kind of fun information from playtesting, maybe the design, or what he's calling stories kind of behind the cards. So it's always really interesting to read what he has to say because he dives so deep into it and isn't afraid to explain why he does the things he does in his game designs. But let's get started with the card. So today's camp that was previewed is called Demolition Derby. Gives you 1 starting card draw at the beginning of the game, 2 water for the Raiders symbol, so that will put the Raiders into play, or if they're already in play, well, advance them along your event queue. And then this camp also has a trait. When your Raiders resolve, move all of the opponent's events back 1 space. So just a few things to go over there. Traits on camps are always active, whether the camp is undamaged and upright or damaged and turned. Just a friendly reminder there for the game rules. Resolving means at the beginning of the turn, it moves from 1 to 0, goes back to wherever the home is that you have for your Raiders. And then when your Raiders resolve at the beginning of the turn, any events that your opponent had in their event queue go back 1 space. So if they had something at 1, it goes to 2, 2 to 3. If they have multiple events, maybe 1 and a 2, it all moves back. Now you can't go further back than 3 for events. So if you were to somehow, resolve the Raiders a second time in your turn, and it was at 2 at the start and went to 3, you couldn't move it from 3 to anything else. It stops at 3. There is no 4 or 5 space in the event queue. So let's talk about some different synergies that we have in the game at the moment. We'll start with camps. So obviously here, this synergizes really well with cheap ways to move your Raiders along. So this comes with a way to, like I mentioned, a way to send out the Raiders. But 2 water is the normal kind of standard cost for that. Garage allows you to play them or advance them for 1. And the Omen Clock allows you to advance any event, including Raiders, by 1. And that 1 cost, obviously, is half the price of the 2 water. So really good synergy there if you were able to kind of stack these camps together to keep your opponent's events from resolving or moving off their event queue. So good camp synergies. Obviously in the deck, anything with the Raiders junk icon, there's a few people that do that, a couple of events, allowing your Raiders to really cheaply move into play or along the event queue. Especially maybe hold on to these when your opponent has maybe played some events. That way you can kind of move them back consistently and really throw off the game of your opponent. So Raiders junk symbols, really good. Some other cards, again, Scientist. So he has the junk symbol, but also his ability allows you to use the junk effect from the 3 cards that you discard off the top of the deck. If one of those symbols is Raiders, then that is a good synergy with your camp here. Scout synergizes really well. Again, a cheap way to get the Raiders into play or advanced along your track. Doomsayer is a really, really great kind of combo piece with Demolition Derby. One of the main reasons is his trait is very similar to Demolition Derby's trait. It moves all of your opponent's events back 1. And then when your opponent has an event in play on their event queue, you get to deal a cheap damage. 1 water, 1 damage. So that's really good, especially if you can keep the Raiders going and maybe keep an event on their event queue in play. You could have really cheap damage for a long time. And then Zeto Khan would be a really good combo for yourself. And you hope that your opponent doesn't draw it, because any events that they play, you won't be able to move back, because Zeta will resolve them for a 0 timed event, as long as it's the first event in the turn. So this combos really well with junking the Raider symbol or paying for the Raider symbol, because then your Raiders will instantly resolve, and if they have an event out, it will at that point in time instantly move back 1 space. So really kind of an interesting card. In the play testing, or a lot of the camps that Daniel kind of came up with, he really wanted to explore spaces and areas that were maybe a little underutilized in the original game. The event queue, the 3 space wasn't used a lot. Moving and interacting with the event queue wasn't used a lot. So we have a camp now that can interact with both of those areas. Camps themselves having traits. There's a few camps in the base game with traits, but not many. So you're definitely going to see a few more of those in the expansion as he's previewing those. This was a fun one. If you've read this post, he talked about how this was kind of a mishmash of a couple of different camps. That kind of happened a lot, where certain things were highly rated about certain camps, but maybe they didn't always work great by themselves, but were fun. So when you can combine a few things together, Raiders resolving, that means moving your opponent's events back. And you'll also see in the expansion previews that, when you kind of have a trait on a camp, there might be some sort of ability to go with it. So that way the camp kind of has multiple functions, a little more design space there. That way you have a few more options to choose from for your camps and your cards. Well, let me know what you think of Demolition Derby. Again, really enjoying the art so far on all of the camps that they've previewed. What do you think? Something that you think you might pick as one of your 3? What synergies did you kind of see that I might have missed? Let me know in the comments down below. And as always, stay thirsty, punks.